Hey everyone, it's time to deploy because it's Friday. That's right, Jim's here. So am I, and we're here to ship whatever the latest news and tech trends we saw during the week. How are you, Jim?
Yeah, really good, man. Had a great week this week. Playing around lots of big pieces of hardware and stuff. It's been fun.
Oh, tell me about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. We've been spending some time creating really big Octopus instances in the cloud and seeing how they go.
Okay,
Yeah,
excellent. It's like, can you give me a hint? Like, are we talking terabytes of memory?
more enough that I got pinged by someone to ask why I was using so much money in Azure.
Oh, I see. Yep, makes sense. That's cool. All right,
Yeah.
let's get on with the news of the week. So, this is a blog post entitled Live Updates of Kubernetes Objects During Deployment. In fact, this is actually a blog post announcing what we're adding to Octopus, which is object status checks. So, when you do a deployment via Octopus to a Kubernetes cluster, one of the things historically that's always been a challenge is knowing what state your pods, your replica sets, your ingress rules, etc., your various configurations that you want inside of Kubernetes. How is that going? Is it going well? Has anything failed? Like what's going on? And so what we're doing is we're adding this ability to Octopus, the ability to view object status of various things in a Kubernetes cluster. So this is something that you'll find in this article here, and we talk a little bit about the motivations behind this and what goes into it and all that great stuff. And you're at all curious about reading more about it, you can check out this blog post. We've added some more documentation to the DevOps subsite. So you'll find us at octopus.com/DevOps. And there you'll find a new set of articles covering platform engineering, which is in some respects an evolution of the DevOps philosophy. And so we talk a little bit about here about, you build it, you own it, that sort of thing, what you're trying to attempt to achieve with platform engineering, and the sort of things that go into it, what you need to consider. So if you're a member of a team that is looking at applying some of the philosophies around platform engineering, you can take a look at this article that we have here, share this with the team, see if there's any traction there. And really, it's a developer. I would say platform engineering is a developer first approach to building systems and software, meaning you want to take all aspects into account when building that out, from the design to the to the deployment to the maintenance, etc., and everything in between.
Yeah, it's that developer as a customer idea, isn't it? I really enjoy it.
This is a recent webinar that was hosted by TechStrong. TechStrong TV is the website, and there we had our fearless leader Harsh, who was there talking with Alan, and was joined by a customer of Kinder Systems. They were talking about utilizing Octopus, and so this is basically a discussion that they had around some of the things that were seen in that implementation, and some of the benefits of utilizing Octopus. And so, if you're at all curious to check that out, that would be a great interview to go take a look. And we also did a recent interview with Alan Shreve of ngrok. This is a interview I did with him where we discussed the tool ngrok and all the stuff that goes into it. And it's available up on our YouTube channel, which is here. And so we talk about, what is ngrok, how has ngrok evolved over time, what are the things that you need to be aware of, etc. And that video interview is now available up on our channel. And I had a great time talking to Alan. I thought it was really informative for me to hear where ngrok has evolved to. They recently added an ingress controller for Kubernetes to ngrok. They have support for OAuth, various OAuth providers. There's a lot of stuff in this interview that is worth checking out. And so I would encourage you, if you're at all curious, to go check out this interview I did with him. It was a lot of fun, and we had some great insights that he shared. Another video that we have up on our channel is a recent webinar that Adam and I hosted. This was entitled "Getting Started with Octopus and Modern Deployments." And in this, we went through basically standing up a new project in Octopus, deploying to it from GitHub via GitHub Actions, utilizing Terraform inside of a deployment process. We showed off we showed off manual interventions. We showed off, how to deploy to an Azure web app. So it was a lot of fun. We had some interesting questions that came in as well. So that was a webinar, and that's available also on our YouTube channel, worth checking out there. And then finally, wrapping up the Octopus news. This is for those folks who are in the Irish Isle in Belfast. There's a partner event happening on May 17th from a partner of ours talking about Octopus Deploy from startup to enterprise, implementing an effective deployment strategy. And so, if you're at all curious, you can go check it out there. I've never been to Belfast. I hear it's lovely, but if you're at all interested about finding out about Octopus, and specifically, how it was implemented, this would be an event worth checking out. This is an article that I found earlier today. It was from the Register. Register has been kind of one of those sites that I've seen from time to time that's like, picks up the odd sort of, whoa, that's happening. I didn't really, they have some really interesting gets in the news biz, as they say. And this is an article that was entitled, Microsoft is busy rewriting core Windows code in memory-safe Rust. Now that's a sea change week and back, huh? How about that?
That's
So yeah, I mean, Mark Rosinovich, who's the CTO of Azure, recently came out and said something to the effect of, if you're looking at building solutions and you're considering, C or C++, etc., you should consider as an alternative Rust. Really, Rust is the way forward. And so I thought this was a really interesting sort of kind of, oh, FYI, this is happening. So I think I've told a lot of my friends and colleagues in this industry that I think Rust is going to see a huge spike in 2024. It is the most loved language in all the Stack Overflow surveys, etc. You're seeing folks like the Primogen talking about it all the time, who's got a very popular Twitch stream. So just fantastic to see this evolving. More recent developments around Rust, which we won't get into in this, around community and how you use the Rust trademark, etc., have raised some eyebrows. But I think it's encouraging that folks like Microsoft are taking on Rust and implementing it in Windows Core.
I've missed the controversy. I mean, we've been talking about this for a little while on the show now. Like, there's been signals like Rust almost here, but I mean, with this and then Linux doing
Yeah,
experiments in their kernel as well. I mean, it's here, right?
yeah.
It's here.
It is. I mean, it's interesting. Like you see these things crop up from time to time. The controversy surrounding Rust right now is the Rust Foundation came out with this sort of primer introduction sort of policy around how to utilize the Rust logo and the word Rust itself, which is trademarked apparently. I'm not getting all the tidbits
Yeah.
right, but that's the gist of it. And then the whole community came back and said, what? Like, how does this affect content creators? How does this affect book authors? What do you mean we can't affect the logo? I mean, Rust is incredibly popular with the community. Why are you doing this now? And so
Yeah.
there's been a bit of pushback there. So that's what I was referring to in terms of
Yeah.
controversy.
Everyone write
Language
Rust,
itself is
but
great.
don't talk about Rust.
That's right. Fight Club. Perfect. Why is OAuth still hard in
Oh, man.
2023, Jim? I
And
don't
look,
get it.
every time I have to work on it, I'm drawing that diagram over again. Which flow? What? Huh? Yeah.
I've been in this space. It's very, very sad. I just, constant tears and consumption of various forms of alcohol will help ease the pain. But this is an article that was written that basically describes the fact that OAuth today, where it's 2023, this should be a done problem, and yet OAuth still remains a challenge. I mean, this is part of the reason why the OIDC tried to address this. But OAuth 2, I mean, there's so many variances in terms of scopes, in terms of grant types. And I mean, this is the 10-step process you need to conduct in order just to verify with Salesforce. I mean, why are we in this world? Why is this not a thing? And so, the problems that are cited in this article include the fact that everyone's different in subtle ways. This is the nuance that really catches you out. Like, we have integration with OAuth for our Jira integration, for example, and that's in its own done a particular way. There's integration with GitHub, there's integration with Google, there's integration with Microsoft. There's all kinds of different ways in which you integrate, and those are just the common ones, like, let alone all the various integrations that exist out there. There's like 50 hundreds of types of integrations you may want to consider, and they all differ in certain ways. And yes, there are frameworks, and yes, there are solutions, but it shouldn't have to be this way, right? So this is a good article that kind of highlights what's wrong.
I mean, it's interesting, right? Before OAuth, there was nothing. So at least we have something, I suppose, but it is hard.
Yes.
I was just trying to work out what adjective to use there. I went with hard. Could have been
It's hard.
worse.
I know. It's like I know it's not as well, I feel stabby when I have to use it. That's the thing. Like I
Yeah, that's a good way to
sorry,
put
that's
it.
when I have to implement it. When I have to implement it.
Yeah,
Not when I use it,
yeah,
I love it. Like everyone loves OAuth
yeah,
as a user, but no one likes
exactly.
implementing it. That's the problem. This was an article that got a little traction internally. 69 ways to F up your deploy. Now, for folks who are tracking this, we've decided to, for family friendly content, blur out obviously the F description here. But this is an article that was written by Kelly Shortridge, who's done an amazing job of highlighting some of the things that can really, really go wrong in a deployment. And they're summarized by this list here. This isn't the full list. This is just a sub list that categorizes them. So, problems with identity, problems with logging and monitoring, problems with, playing with deployment mismatches, configuration tarnation, statefulness is hard, net not working, roles and reboots, et cetera, et cetera. And so if you're at all curious, you can go through these, and there's just any number of ones that are awesome in terms of observation. Like, for example, if I go down here to the bottom, some of the ones that were kind of highlighted is like manual deploys. Is
Mm-mm-mm.
that probably worth doing? Workflow dispatch, is that something that we should probably look at? That's obviously a challenge. Some of the other ones that we saw include deployment assumes all servers are updated at the same time, but they're not 100%. This is something that can go wrong very, very badly. And so time is a challenge. The other one that I saw, which I liked, was 58. Behavior of your dependents screws up your deploy. And that helps make things go horribly, horribly wrong. So anything that you depend on, if they don't act well in your pipeline, for example, can go horribly, horribly well. So this is more of an article that is I like this. Your manager on their way to a hot patch at the Erlang console. I love it. That's the old what's that? Mid Journey did that
Yeah,
generation
yeah, yeah.
there. So yeah, I
I'm
mean,
very much enjoying the flavor of this article and the
yes,
header. I like the header with a little C colon too. Looks like it's got
yeah,
some good stuff in it.
yeah.
Mm,
I mean, we can't go through all of them, obviously, but
mm,
I mean, no rollback plan. Just the gems in here. So definitely worth checking out. And we've got a link, obviously. Um, so definitely worth checking out. And it's more of it doesn't offer a lot of prescriptive guidance, but it's more for commiserating failed deployments. So I like it. Yeah. So articles like this always make me feel like, oh, okay, good. I'm not alone. Good.
mm.
So yeah. The lasso compels you to tell the truth. Our logs aren't being sent anywhere. Uh-oh. So yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
I just upgraded to a key management system. Oh my god, grats. Those logs are so useful. You are collecting the log access logs, right? So, yeah. So yeah, 69 ways to F up your deploy. Definitely worth checking
Nice.
out. This is a blog post that was recently published entitled How to Use the Space Git Flow with TeamCity. For those who aren't aware, Space Git Flow is it's sort of a prescriptive guidance that is from JetBrains about how you should go about merging commits and relative to branches. So the main branch is for production only. Development is done in short-lived feature branches, which are then merged into main branch when ready. Merge requests are used for code reviews and must pass through quality gates before merging. For extra security, safe merge is used before merging from feature to main, and release branches are created from main. This seems sensible. I don't know about you, but it seems quite sensible. So
Yeah.
they talk about it in the context of TeamCity. So Space Gitflow, by the way, just include another example here. This is what they introduced earlier this month. I think I talked about this in an earlier show where they talk about how, this is something that they prescribed. Gitflow can be a nightmare, of course.
Yeah.
We've all been in certain states like this. This is obviously something you don't want to be in. You want to try and keep the levels of the cubicle. I've heard these as like, how many cubicles are you away to resolve this problem? the number of branches levels that you should be away should be a minimum. I think if you're going beyond 2 or 3, you've got a problem. So I'm a fan of trunk-based development, keeping everything kind of short and kind of patch it back in, and away we go. This is the way that they're prescribing this for utilizing it. And so, in the context of in the context of TeamCity, Space GitFlow, this article talks about that and how to leverage it. And there's even a video that goes into it as well. So there you go.
Nice. Yeah, it's hard to get that last bit right too. Is that what the safe merge is talking about? Just making sure that what's reviewed and what's CI'd actually gets into master.
Extremely important.
Yeah.
So for those folks who are at all curious, we utilize GitHub immensely at Octopus, and we utilize protected branches and protection rules for the main, and we institute a bunch of checks. So those are done on a team by team basis. Some repositories have less checks than others, but we utilize those quite effectively, and we have to, obviously, because they have different requirements for different teams. VS Code Day 2023. This is an awesome event. This happened just less than 24 hours ago, and featured a number of prominent folks, both at Microsoft and I think folks outside of Microsoft, yes. And featured basically everything around that you could possibly want to see around VS Code. And so the videos, this was a live event that was hosted by the VS Code team, including Burke Holland, a friend of ours, and featured a number of speakers. And you can watch all of these now, and it's available through the Microsoft Learn site. Some great sessions that were there that included things like, an overall examination of VS Code by Eric Gamma and friends, who was one of the original creators of VS Code. These are obviously the resources that are available there. So if you're all curious at checking out what was talked about there, you can go to the Microsoft Learn site, check out the content that's there. Lots and lots of sessions. And then in addition to that, there is the announcement of Microsoft Build that's coming up as well. So May 23rd to 25th, Microsoft Build live in Seattle. It's coming. So this will be hosted online. There's a lot of content worth checking out there. I'm sure VS Code will be mentioned. I'm sure AI will be talked about quite a bit. So lots of stuff worth checking out there.
Nice. Live event. Yeah. Back to live events.
Back to live event. So fantastic stuff. The Seattle Convention Center doesn't look this nice. I've been there many times. It's but it's all right. So yeah, it's a good event to go to. Build, for those folks who haven't been, very heavily developer focused, and definitely worth your time. So if you're all interested, go check it out. Grafana 9.5 is available. It's a bit of a minor update in my book. Added some capabilities that I thought were nice. Probably not mission critical, but a lot of folks had asked for updating Grafana for alert monitoring. So the idea is that if I pass certain thresholds, I can be alerted based on the telemetry that's coming in. So you can set up alert rules. You can get notified for a variety of different conditions that may occur that kick off via Grafana. This is something that is nice to have. Obviously, the IT folks will appreciate this. Improve your security with service accounts. So service accounts are typically low trust accounts, ones that don't require a lot of privileges. They're not usually user account either. And so this is something that obviously is going to be important for a variety of operations. I would imagine that generating reports would be something that would fall into that realm. So if you're automating your report generation of Grafana, that would be something you could do. Grafana dashboards made easy. So now they have this sort of walkthrough now that you can create these dashboards. I never found creating dashboards in Grafana all that difficult, but I guess so for some folks, they need a sort of a bootstrapping process. So that helps there. Adding accessibility to charts and graphs, always a good thing. And then a bunch of other minor updates. So that's Grafana 9.5. The .NET Community Toolkit has also been updated to 8.2. As it says in the title, faster generators, code fixers, performance improvements, and more. I love these titles. They're great. So the .NET Community Toolkit has been out for quite a while, actually. It has a bunch of libraries that you can use. There's a repo that you can check out for it as well, and provides a bunch of common classes that you may want to use in your .NET applications. And so the .NET Community Toolkit has a number of these, and in the 8.2 release, they've added a bunch of capabilities. So Custom attributes for relay command. I have not used this, so I don't know anything about this. New observable property change hooks. Again, haven't really used this either, so I'm sure it's great, So, but again, if you're at all interested, bunch of features in there. You can check out the repo, which is here. So this is the repo here, and it provides a rundown of what's in there. So it breaks it down into these packages. So there's like common, diagnostics, high performance, MVVM, if you're at all interested, and there's docs for seeing all that. So again, 8.2 is now available. We're checking out. Another update, obviously GitLab 15.11. Lots of features in here. I don't use GitLab. I have used GitLab in the past. It's one of those things, you're either with a GitLab instance or you're with a GitHub instance. I don't find customers who are using both, but if you're at all interested, GitLab 15.11 is now available with code suggestions. So code suggestions, as they articulate, is basically like providing IntelliSense as you're coding here, which is kind of nice. And it's obviously in the context of what you're utilizing within your repo. So you can improve productivity, focus, and innovation without context switching, et cetera, et cetera. So good stuff there. This is a key improvement that's been made. Web IDE beta enabled by default on self-managed. So this is akin to what GitHub has with their .dev domain. So if you go to github.dev, where you hit the period key on a repo, it will bump you into their Web IDE. Award achievements for users. Got to have those badges. Got to chase the badges.
That's why I get up in the morning.
That's right. Google Play Store integration. Manage project compliance frameworks report at group level. These are all ultimate and higher features or premium features, except for Google Play Store integration, obviously. Vulnerability dismissal reasons. Value streams dashboard released in beta. I have not looked at that. Rerun downstream pipeline trigger jobs. So lots and lots of stuff in the 15.11 release worth checking out. You can check out this article or this page that goes into all the highlights there. I don't know about you, Jim, but I like gRPC. I know I'm probably a little bit alone. Like when we were looking at our API, one of the things that we were looking at was, it's a bit of a convoluted story, but we were looking at kind of describing our API metadata via protocol buffers. And gRPC obviously comes in along for the ride in some respects with that, because it does have a binding. Now, gRPC, Google RPC, is a binary format for it's internet friendly, and can pierce a variety of different stacks, etc. It's always been a bit opaque though, because you can't see it in things like DevTools, etc. So now what we have is integration for this inside of Fiddler Everywhere, which is obviously an awesome tool. I use it as part of my toolbox, my arsenal of things. And so gRPC, this is something I've been waiting for a while now. And gRPC is now supported within Fiddler Everywhere, which is fantastic.
That's amazing.
So, yeah. So you got to remember, you have to enable.
What it looks like, or
what's that? Sorry.
Do you have a screenshot there of what it actually looks like? Do you have to
No, this is you have to enable HP2. That's what they're showing here. And then when it's enabled, let me see if I can grab the image here. Let's see, through the magic of software. There we go. So there are a few messages being sent. So that's gRPC messages here. And then to show another example, let's take a look at this one here. So this is showing obviously the headers that are being thrown across. And then on the response, you can see the trailers. And then the last image, which shows the actual messages here, is showing the various client server message being conducted, the binary message here, and then its representation, hello number 4 you, etc. So the goodness of this is the fact that if you're using a tool like Fiddler Everywhere, you can now enable this via HP2 and then start tracking those messages if you're at all curious, which is fantastic. I mean, oftentimes when things go wrong via gRPC or any other binary protocol, it's like, all right, now what? So this is great. And so this is good because I sometimes would like to see what's happening in tools like Terraform. So the Terraform CLI, when it communicates between providers, for example, uses gRPC. There are other examples of tools that I use that use gRPC, and having this support inside of Fiddler Everywhere is going to be really helpful. So I'm really happy about that.
That's really cool.
I'm also a fan of 1Password, which is my password manager of choice. I don't know about you. Uh, they recently published a blog post, which is interesting, saying entitled "We're changing how we discover and prioritize improvements." Basically, they're adding telemetry. So
Mm,
this is always an interesting sort of discussion point with ISVs, which is to add or not to add telemetry. And what I mean by that is, so, it's always hard. It's always harder to add telemetry in retrospect. What I mean by that is after you've shipped V1, right? If
yeah.
you ship
Yep.
telemetry out of the box and you say, look, if you take um, a dependency on this, or you want to use this tool, dependency is enabled, basically. And so the .NET tool set is like that. There's a variety of CLI tools that are like this. And so they have this enabled. Now, the ability to opt in or opt out is always important. You have to have an environment variable, I would argue, that you can set or otherwise. But what's been interesting is that you see a lot of discussion that happens around these things. So it's important that if you're going to implement telemetry in a product, you have to document how it works. You have to be upfront and clear about what it is you're collecting. The vast majority, so here's the thing, like the Go team got into a big snafu with the community recently because they want to add telemetry to the tool set. And everyone's like, no, I don't want you to do that. I'm like, we can't. There's things that we don't know that happen,
Yeah.
when you're compiling via the tool set or when you're like, we would like to know where do we want to concentrate our time. Telemetry is super valuable for that. But people think, I don't know why, but people seem to think like you're going to collect my username. I'm like, no, we don't care. We don't care who you are. All we care about is what you do, not who you are. And so, but that's the thing. Like you got to be 100% transparent when it comes to these. And so, I guess this is one of the ways in which they're trying to be transparent, which is a good thing. So I applaud 1Password for this. I think it's a hard battle, though. As I said before, introducing after you've shipped V1 is always a challenge. There's good ways to do it. There's bad ways to do it. And there's the whole debate about opt-in versus opt-out. What do you think about all of that?
I mean, yeah, well, I've landed on both sides of it, right? As a developer, I'd prefer, let people opt out if they want to, not necessarily surface that opt out particularly proactively. But as a user, yeah, my trust level is getting pretty low these days in a lot of
Why is
providers.
that?
Like,
Why is
well,
that?
I get a lot of emails recently about being in breaches, and yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
you mean
I'm
Troy
getting
and have you been pwned and all that?
even the providers themselves, but yeah, Troy's sometimes too. Like I've got to get new driver's licenses and new passports all the time because they're constantly being leaked, and
Yeah, that's fair.
and I mean that's the general environment of distrust, right? Like if this was a really high trust environment, these things wouldn't be a problem. And I think 1Password probably particularly sensitive industry, not really benefiting from what's been going on with LastPass recently as well, even though it's a completely different company.
Yeah. This is a thread that basically, I mean, you can see how long it is. Look, I mean, just constant,
Yeah,
feedback, etc. Where basically they try to, give a convincing argument as to why they need to collect telemetry. It
yeah,
got to the point where they were doing introduction blog posts the same way, doing it in a transparent manner. This is by all folks like by the creators of Go, Russ Cox and etc. And they're having a discussion around this, and trying to be upfront, and yet people are really really up in arms about it, and it's frustrating. I think
yeah,
as a product developer, because you're like trying to do right by like, listen, we want to prioritize features and bugs and all that. And if we don't, if you get a lot of people are like, well, shouldn't you be collecting user feedback? I'm like, yes, we do. But typically with that is either a bug happens, no one reports it, or the loudest voice wins, or no, it's something that like we think that people are doing X when in reality they're doing Y. So it's not
yeah,
just bugs, it's also like features. Like if no one's using a certain feature, then it's easy to get caught up in the hype that happens when people talk loudly about something. They're like, no, you got to support this. I'm like, well, the reality is no one uses this, right? Like, here's the
yeah.
data, right? So I can understand both sides of it. It's a tough problem, but whenever you introduce telemetry, it's always like, rar, rar. So yeah,
I think the
interesting.
unfortunate part of the equation though, right, is that the responsibility to work out who I should trust falls on me, and I don't have time to work it out. So
Yeah.
I'd end up going no, defaulting to no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair. That's fair. Opt out. Well,
Opt
hopefully you
out.
won't opt out of this this
I'm
YouTube
going home.
channel and
Okay,
this
I'm
video
already home.
series. But that wraps up another episode of Deploy on Friday. We're trying to keep them a little bit quicker, a little bit more short and sharp, to the point. And so hopefully you're enjoying this new format. If you happen to stumble upon a news article or a technical topic that you'd like us to discuss, please let us know in the comments below. And please feel free to like and subscribe to this video. It really helps us out. So on behalf of Jim, I'd like to thank you for joining for another episode of Deploy on Friday. We'll see you next week. Take care.